Horror games are undoubtedly one of, if not the biggest genre in gaming. It competes with the big dogs, but still manages to seem a little bit, smaller scale, to say the least. Horror games are huge, however. Some of the biggest moments in YouTube and Twitch history come from people playing and screaming their way through games like Amnesia, Outlast, Five Nights at Freddy's, Resident Evil, and a ton more. But here's the funny thing that most of you may not know. A massive chunk of the audience would never actually play these games themselves. They'd rather watch someone else suffer through it. And that raises a really interesting question. Why? Why do so many people prefer watching horror games instead of playing them? And that is what prompted me to make this video, because I hate to break it to you guys, but I am one of those people. If you're new to this channel, I have mentioned it once before, but the only horror game I've truly, played all the way through is Dead Space and The Last of Us. I am petrified of playing any of the other ones, so that really kind of piqued my interest in this subject. I'm going to do my best to present all the information I've found as clear and concise as possible. I also want to preface I'm nowhere near an expert, so if stuff in this video is wrong, just take it with a grain of salt. This video is just kind of for fun. I just wanted to talk about something that I found pretty interesting. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. In the thrill without the risk. Now, playing a horror game is intense. You're the one sneaking down a pitch black hallway, hearing footsteps behind you, knowing if you mess up, it's game over. It's not just spooky, it's stressful. Watching someone else, though, that's the sweet spot. You will get the atmosphere, you'll get the jump scares, the creepy environments, but without the responsibility of possibly messing it up for yourself or your character. Psychologists actually describe this as the difference between primary fear and secondary fear. Primary fear is when you're directly in danger, like when you're holding the controller and the monster is chasing you. Meanwhile, secondary fear is when you're just observing it happen to someone else. It's less overwhelming and honestly a lot more fun. I also believe it's a lot less personal, which probably helps with the lack of fear part. Now, fear gets way less scary when you share it. That's one of the reasons horror streams and Let's Plays blew up in the first place. I think about PewDiePie's Amnesia series, or Markiplier with Five Nights at Freddy's or Alien Isolation. You could name, you can go on and on with streamers and the games that they play. People didn't just tune in for the game, though. They tuned in to see the reactions of these iconic streamers, of these iconic YouTubers, I should say. And because when you see someone else scream, and laugh about it afterwards, or even poke fun during the events happening, the whole experience becomes entertaining instead of just terrifying. It's kind of the same phenomenon of, when you go to a haunted house with your friends and you're all goofing around and making jokes, or if you're watching a really scary movie with a friend and you always have the one that's trying to crack jokes and poke holes and everything the whole time. Watching horror turns it into a kind of community event we can all share in. Almost like watching a scary movie with friends, like I mentioned. You're all in it together, except it's funnier because the poor player is the one suffering through all of it. And as I mentioned, if they mess up, it's on them, not on you. They could just restart and you get to keep watching them mess up or eventually succeed. Now, horror games are built around making you feel powerless. You've got limited ammo, slow controls, terrifying enemies that you cannot fight head on in most of them. I say most because, sure, there are some exceptions, but then for those exceptions, some people argue that those aren't full-on horror. They're more like action horror, but either way, you get what I'm trying to say. Some people hate that. Nobody enjoys running out of flashlight batteries in Outlast, or realizing you're trapped in a room with Mr. X in Resident Evil 2. Or, honestly, even just hearing Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 is bad enough for me. But when you're just watching, you're back in control. You can pause the video, you can look away, and you can even laugh at the player's panic. The person playing becomes your fear proxy. They take all of the stress off of your behalf because at any point you could just get up and walk away. It's kind of like the same experience, in my opinion, of watching a horror movie at home versus a theater. When you're in a movie theater, it's dark, there's people around you adding to the atmosphere, the suspense. You can't exactly walk away. You can't just look at your phone. You can't distract yourself. You are in the shit. Meanwhile, if you're watching a film at home, you can do all those things I just listed, and then some. But not everybody who watches horror games is there for the scares. A lot of people are actually interested in the story, as a lot of these stories deal with grief, trauma, and immense loss. Games like Silent Hill 2, The Last of Us, and Until Dawn are basically playable horror movies. They've got deep themes, emotional moments, and mysteries you want to unravel. I mean, even Five Nights at Freddy's hooked people with its hidden lore and creepy backstory that people still discuss today. And it's one that I honestly have never gotten into just because of how much lore there seems to be. I do know of the Bite of 87, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Now, let's be real. The person playing is half the fun. Whether it's Markiplier screaming, Jacksepticeye cracking jokes, or Corey Kenshin hyping up the chat. People come back for the personalities. It's like watching a scary movie with your favorite friend. The kind of friend who makes the whole thing way less scary, or the kind of friend who just is able to sit there and watch, whichever friend you vibe with more. That's why Let's Plays and horror streams became cultural moments. It turned solo horror experiences into group entertainment, and it honestly is a bit of a community because most people don't just like one horror game, they like them all, and they want to see their favorite streamer or YouTuber play them all. Here's the science behind it though. Fear and excitement actually feel really similar in the body. Your heart rate goes up, adrenaline spikes, and your senses sharpen. Think of riding a roller coaster or, texting your crush for the first time. There's a fine line between fear and excitement, and honestly, sometimes that line is completely blurred and you can't even tell the difference. At least I can't. However, if your brain knows you're safe, those signals feel exciting instead of dangerous. That's why people ride roller coasters, go through haunted houses, and why haunted houses are so popular in the first place, and why these horror games are more fun to watch than they are to play for some people. You get that adrenaline rush, but with no real consequences. And that's entertainment at its purest. That is what we all sign up for when we go to horror movies, or just honestly even thrillers for that matter, of any kind. It's a lot of fun in the process. But there's also the simple fact that not everybody can play these games. Maybe their console or PC is not powerful enough to handle them. Maybe they don't want to drop $60 or nowadays $70 on something they'll play once and never touch again. And I touched on this in one of my previous videos, but this kind of delves into the whole should console exclusives thing exist, because some people are priced out of things, and honestly, when it comes to video games now, it doesn't even have to be a console exclusive. Sometimes things are just too expensive. So people's alternative, and what mine was as a kid, because I knew I would not be able to play these, is watching it on YouTube or Twitch, because it's easier, it's faster, and it's, of course, free. It's like watching a horror movie instead of making one yourself. I mean, not many people just go and do that. And for some games like Until Dawn or The Quarry, the cutscenes are so cinematic, so atmospheric, and the way they involve you in the game and immerse you, they might as well just be movies. And even though they kind of messed up the Until Dawn movie somehow, that is, just how I feel about those games. I get more invested in the cutscenes and the times I'm not playing than the times I am, which says a lot about that. So to wrap it up, why do so many people prefer watching horror games over playing them? It's because you get the best parts of the story. You get the atmosphere, you get the adrenaline rush, but without the stress, the helplessness, or the cost. Because it's funnier, safer, and way more communal. And at the end of the day, horror games are scary to play, but a blast to watch. And maybe that's the real magic of horror. Maybe it's not just about fear, but it's about how we share it. And there's, in my opinion, something very cathartic to that, and very therapeutic for a lot of people. I think that's why so many enjoy horror as a genre as a whole. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this topic. Like I said, guys, I'm not going to go into, in-depth statistics on mental health or the psychology of it all, because I'm nowhere near a trained professional enough to do that. But if you enjoyed what I had to say and you agree or disagree, let me know down below. Let me know, if you have a different reason. Maybe you think some people enjoy watching rather than playing. And if you guys really want to put me through some trauma and punishment, let me know if you want to see me stream any horror games this Halloween, because I do have a few that admittedly I have not played, like the Outlast 1 and 2 and Resident Evil 2 and 4. Well, I played a bit of 4, I should say, but admittedly not nearly enough. But that about does it for this video, guys. Like I said, if you have any complaints or compliments, leave them down below. I appreciate you sticking around this long if you have. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Try not to get too scared in the meantime.